Hello? There we go.
There we go.
There's some music in the background, but this is different. Somebody want to fix that?
Keep it.
Soothing.
So soothing.
I like
It's like
it.
we're at a spa.
Just need the scents now. Spa scents.
Burn some sage or something. Did you really? I'll pass.
All right, very good. We're going to start again. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the City of Delray Beach's workshop meeting scheduled for Thursday, January 4th, 2024 at 4 p.m. Please call the roll.
Mr. Frankel?
Present.
Mr. Long?
Present.
Ms. Burns?
Here.
Mayor Petrolia?
Here. We have Vice Mayor Ryan Boylston that's going to be patched in through the microphone or the phone, so I need to get a motion to accept that.
Motion to allow Ryan to appear via Zoom.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Mayor Petrolia?
Yes.
Mr. Frankel?
Yes.
Mr. Boylston?
No, he's moving.
He's there.
Is that a yes, Mr. Boylston? Okay, well, then we won't worry about it. We have three workshop items. The first one is a request by Mr. Halliday for sponsorship on pedicabs. And who is going to be leading this discussion? Oh, come on up.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? Hope everybody had a nice Christmas and a New Year. My name is Patrick Halliday. I'm the founder of the Delray Beach Bicycle Club,
And give us your address, too, just for the record.
1071
Thank you.
Delray Lakes Drive, Delray Beach, Florida. Before I begin, I want to thank Angela for her support and believing in me for everything I have been doing over the years. It's been about 10 years with HPD and the city. This is a little trip of pictures that were taken over the last 2019 to 2021. You can see a lot of people that are really enjoying. There's a star, a person from the Monkees. There's one of our wonderful mayor here.
And Mr. Tony?
Yeah, giving the thumbs up to pedicabs. During the election period, you had an opportunity to see people out and about in the signs advertising who to think and consider for election. We actually began at the Green Market years ago when I first introduced the first pedicab. Everyone loved it. Had a petition signed by I think over 6,000 local people live here over the 4 years who wanted to join and support it. That previous picture was one of our commissioners who, by the way, I took her for a little ride around town Delray, and her statement was, geez, I don't understand why anybody would object to this. I just had a wonderful experience. But later on, obviously that didn't happen. Some more pictures. This is the Opal Hotel. The guests there, Hyatt, Opal, Courtyard, they all really wanted to get involved because they were getting responses from the guests saying, we just took a wonderful experience. We were uptown, we came back downtown, didn't have to walk back, took a pedicab, and it was really great. And they really loved it. So for 3 years, we went through being able to help people to get around. Another example is the Witches Ride, always a very popular event. People loved it. In fact, there was a lady this last year that was 91 years old. She wanted to be in the ride, but obviously she can't ride a bike. So we got her on, and she had a great time, and it was a wonderful experience. It's all about bicycles. Today, you're talking about bicycles, and my whole career is basically around bicycles and giving to the city as a volunteer of just spending time. My effort and my dollars to support bicycles in Delray. In fact, if you'd like, I'd like to give everyone, if you can, hand these out. These are maps. There's a map inside of different rides around Delray, and these are the volunteers. These people do not work for me. I have no employees. I have no salary. I don't need an office or a warehouse. They simply own their bike, and they ride it downtown, and they offer people rides for a tip only. There's no fee. There's no cost. There's nothing involved. There's no product sales. It's all simply just volunteer work. Good, strong volunteer work that people like. And you can see people really enjoy this. I mean, it's incredible. We've had a wonderful experience. 3 years, no issues or concerns. In fact, a lot of celebrities now, like pedicabs. Not everybody wants to ride in a golf cart. I mean, they're great to get around, but they're like a box in many ways. There's no air conditioning. I think people like the open air experience of being outside, feeling the fresh air. A lot of times it's couples, husband and wife. You can see them as they enjoy the ride, arm around each other, giving each other a kiss. It's kind of like bringing back together again. It's something that over 50 cities in Florida have pedicabs, call it a rickshaw. It's a bicycle. Essentially, it's a bicycle. The same thing you would go and buy in a bicycle shop. The only difference is they don't sell them in bicycle shops. But I want to make another important point here. This is from the state of Florida. Their Florida statute 316 clearly identifies that bicycles, which they say with two rear wheels or two front wheels, any combination, have all the rights to the road and provided by the state of Florida to operate without any restriction from a utility or a city or a town. So the state of Florida actually, sees this as a bicycle. It's like I said, it's simply, you can add names, you can call it something, but it's truly the wheels, the tires, the handlebars, everything except for the carriage on the back and the seat. It's a bicycle, and we can go over the pictures again, but it's just an enjoyment. It's something that people like because it's a different experience. Some people say, well, we just knocked something off our bucket list. We always wanted to do this. Didn't know you had them here in Delray. And again, 3 successful years. Nobody said anything about it. And because there's no product or sale or no commerce, I guess my question is it really a violation of an LDR? My understanding of the LDR is if it's a business, doctor, lawyer, dentist, and it's not on the pre-approved list, commission has to approve it. And so that's really where we're at. Just getting the approval, again, nothing's really going to change. There's no interest in charging any money. It's simply, and I've taken a lot of people on a ride and they say, geez, I don't have any money. Don't worry about it. Have a nice day. Maybe next time. There's absolutely no requirement for a fee. And that's why I think I just have a problem with it being a violation of an LDR. Because again, it's not a commerce and there's no transaction of business. It's simply people want to enjoy themselves. So again, I thank for the opportunity. As you can see, it's all about having a good time and enjoyment. That's what I'm all about, and that's what I've been for the city for many, many years. Just giving and giving and giving. The Green Market, for example, Shelley's son was with me at the Green Market for many years there. A wonderful young man, very intelligent, loved being around him. The people at the Green Market just always got a chance to ask questions. What about it? The only people that were negative on it were maybe a small handful of people, and their answer was, we were just concerned about you. And I say, I thank you very much for that. But majority of the people, whether they be visitors or tourists, they just absolutely love the idea of it and they enjoy it. And that's really why we're at today. I hope that we can come to some conclusion and you help me to continue something that has become a nightlife, part of the nightlife of downtown. At least it was for 3 years, and everybody wants to get it back. I'm getting calls constantly from the Opal Courtyard. What happened? What happened? Why? We got people asking about this. And my answer is, there's nothing I can do about it. The city decided to pull a plug. And that's where we're at.
Okay,
So I
thank you.
hope that, you all can come together and, give us a positive thumbs up and get going again. Thank you.
Very good. All right, to the commission, I don't think we have any, do we have anybody from the city that's going to be speaking on this?
Unless there are questions, no.
No.
Very good. So to the commission.
I have a question. So the police department, no one is going to present because, my concern would be safety, and if there have been any issues. I know Mr. Holliday said that he's been operating for 3 years. I know I enjoyed my ride when I got my ride, and I did sponsor this because I think it's a great idea, and I would like to hear the cons for this. So, okay,
Chief
thank you.
Major's approach, Chief.
Thank you. I'm sorry to make you come up and present.
Good afternoon, Russ Major, Chief of Police. I've been here for many years, almost 28 years, and I love the concept of the pedicab, but the downtown area is where I had the biggest issue, or the department's experiencing the biggest issue with regard to the sheer volume of traffic and vehicular traffic that's downtown. The bicycle statutes are a little different with regard to the size of that vehicle versus a bicycle. Obviously, a bicycle can stay in a bicycle lane. Bicycle lane downtown is really the most right portion of the lane. That can't really fit in it, per se. You're forced to actually go around into oncoming traffic. So I'm not against the pedicab in general, but for our downtown area specifically, we were running into a lot of problems with regard to it holding up traffic, with regard to making U-turns across double yellow lines, with regard to pick up and drop off. There was no real designated area to actually pick up and drop off other than stopping in the middle of the road. So as a police department, we were experiencing a lot of problems as it related to public safety.
Thank you. Anything else?
Can I respond to that, please?
No. At this point, we're just discussing. Yeah, sure. Commissioner Frankel.
Mayor, how many times have we seen this presentation?
I would say I have to be 5 times maybe for me.
I would agree with you.
Okay.
We've heard this 5 times. Lynn, has this ever passed? Okay.
No.
We saw a lot of pictures. Every photo, if it's never passed, it must be against code, this business operating.
From my understanding is that some of those were during special events, which is obviously very
exactly.
different, like a
Okay,
parade
good.
or
Okay.
something like that. But we did have a situation where Mr. Holliday was operating, and I believe code enforcement contacted him. A bicycle is allowed on the roadways. He's correct about that. However, this is a bicycle that's being used for commercial business. And a commercial business is required to, number one, be licensed, but number two, in our code of ordinances and our LDRs, we have uses that are permitted, and it has to be a use that's permitted. This is not a permitted use. We have a segue tour section of our code.
We remember that.
Not really, hasn't really been used, but it's in there because that's how we require these businesses to operate in order to give the commission the ability to regulate them. And so that's why he's here before you today. I understand what he's saying, that it's based on tips. It's still a commercial business.
And I would agree with that. I did speak with one of the owners of the Opal Grand Hotel. They never voiced support of this. They've never used this service, to be clear about that. This is something that has come before the commission many times in the time the mayor and I have been up here. There are public safety issues. There's issues with the traffic in our downtown. And quite frankly, I don't see the need for it. And I have never been in favor, and I don't see a reason to change my mind today. Thank you.
Very good. Deputy Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I have to agree with my colleagues' comments, and based on what Chief Major has referenced in regard to safety issues and traffic issues in our downtown. I'm an avid cyclist. I certainly support the idea of it, but I don't think it works in our downtown. I think we're tasked with ensuring we have a major traffic issue downtown right now. We're doing everything we can to try and resolve that and keep it as safe as possible. And this, unfortunately, feels like a step in the wrong direction. So I don't think I can be in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. So out of the 5 times that you've heard this, Commissioner Frankel, I think I sponsored maybe 2 or 3 of those. But speaking with staff as we revisit this once again, timing's just not right. We have a lot going on downtown. We have a PED bike master plan, which we're going to talk about in tonight's City Commission meeting. And staff is just not in support of layering this on. Of course, hey, if 3 or more of us agree, they will, certainly. But just the timing's not right on it. So while I have supported this in the past, because obviously it's green, obviously it's a different type of transportation that gets people out of their cars. Now is not the time that I can support this with all the other initiatives that we have going on.
Very good. Thank you very, very much. I think that's enough, but I'll make my comments. I reached out because listen, I know Patrick has been around for a while. You saw I was in a couple of the pictures. That was way early on. And I think it was maybe event or I don't think that was when he was operating. Regardless, I did reach out to those downtown that would know better than me and asked what their thoughts were on this, and there was not support. And it was basically because of the reasons that you all have already stated up here. And of course, Chief has indicated. It's a safety issue, and it's also just there's so much going on down there right now that it just is going to make it that much harder to be able to try to manage. So with that, I think you have your direction.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, very good. So we're moving on to workshop item number 2, which is the request by Mr. Jetta for a text amendment on, I think they're
Sir,
MH.
at the podium, please.
MTHUs.
Is the presentation coming up? Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about our proposed ordinance revision that will allow multi-tenant housing units, MTHUs, in the West Atlantic Neighborhood Subdistrict. My name is Dr. Kurt Jetta, president of Jetta Investment Company of Delray Beach. I will provide information on the public policy elements of this proposal, while my attorney, Michael Weiner of Sachs Kaplan, will offer his expertise on Delray LDRs. In October, Jetta Investment fielded a scientific poll among 315 active voters in Delray Beach. We described MTHUs in the following manner. They are like traditional rooming houses where residents share a bathroom and a kitchen. Rents are $600 per month versus the average of $1,400 a month for a studio apartment. They were recently approved citywide in Toronto, Ontario. MTHUs do not require any tax breaks or subsidies. They include advanced security systems and rigorous background checks for prospective tenants. They have existed in Delray Beach since 1960, and there have been no incidents of crime in these units since rigorous tenant vetting was implemented. When offered these facts about MTHUs, the support of Delray voters was overwhelming and broad. By a 3-to-1 margin, voters supported MTHUs. Now, we understand there are many legitimate concerns about MTHUs, but in a 10-minute workshop, I just don't have time to address every single one of them. That's what the vetting process is all about by city staff. But the 3 most common we hear are concerns about shared bathrooms, Delray's bad experience with sober homes, and the fear of abuse by bad landlords. And all these concerns and many others are addressed on our website, and I can address them in this forum as well. Since we last presented the MTHUs concept to the Commission in October 2022, we've made the following changes. First, we've isolated these units just to the West Atlantic Subdistrict, a community that strongly backs our proposal. We removed single-family zones from the ordinance. We reduced the density from 48 to 24 units maximum. We've capped the number of residents per unit to 1.25, and we've added a minimum age requirement. When voting on this proposal moving forward to the next stage, please keep in mind these grim statistics from the 2021 U.S. Census. 6,700 people in Delray right now are non-family households making under $35,000 per year. Now, I've heard some suggest that micro apartments are the answer to this problem. And a micro apartment is a studio apartment. And according to the federal government, those go for now $1,800 a month. At a smaller size, a micro apartment might be $1,200, but only people making $36,000 a year can afford that. And they can also afford cars, which requires more parking. What about the people making less than $36,000 a year? Their rent burden is enormous. 83% of the renters under $35,000 in our town are spending more than half of their money on rent. You compare that to anybody renting that makes more than that, it's 9% are rent burden over 50%. Now, besides all the human aspect of the low-income housing, there's 4 reasons why we should all care about this subject. 1, we reduce homelessness. 2, we maintain a pool of low-wage workers to support local businesses, and we also, 3, free up income that can be spent on those local businesses. Plus, we stabilize communities with a stable living situation. We see all these concepts at work with the tenants at our building at 105 Northwest 5th Avenue. There's 10 units there, 3 traditional apartments, 7 MTHUs. 5 of the 10 were homeless right before they moved in. 2 of them were placed by our outreach coordinator, Ariana. 1 of them works for the city of Delray Beach. Gregory works for Delray Housing Group. Both were homeless before moving in. Now both can walk to work. Nick bikes to his job at Marshall's. Jackie works at TJ Maxx. Desiree at McDonald's. Tamika at Home Depot. 4 of the tenants are on fixed incomes. 3 retired and 1 a disabled vet. Since not all their money is tied up in rent, Nick enjoys spending his money at nightclubs and surf shops on the Ave. Jackie goes to local nail salons weekly to maintain the most ornate set of nails you've ever seen. Spider is a retiree and likes to treat the other tenants to a cookout every few months. Of the 7 MTHUs, there are only 2 cars. Of the 3 traditional apartments, there are 4 cars. Nick, Jackie, and Spider have a combined 14 years living there. This is not transient living. And in the words of Charlene Farrington of the Spady Museum, they are the eyes and ears of our neighborhood. We are proud to call them neighbors. As I hope you can see, this is a winning issue from a personal, a political, and a policy standpoint. 70% of the Delray voters support this measure. Over 200 have signed the petition supporting it, and the leaders of the set came out in force to voice their support. In fact, many are here today. Can I see a show of hands? Who is here for the support? We understand this is only the first of many steps to final approval, but thousands of our residents are in need right now. I believe this information meets the threshold for further review by city staff. And I'll now turn it over to Mr. Weiner.
Thank you, Kurt. I know we have a time schedule here, so let me get to it. The superiority of Kurt's program is it does not require a subsidy. All we need is an acknowledgement that building and maintaining even micro units is beyond the financial capabilities of a substantial portion of our local population. And we know that is true. The program is designed so as not to allow overcrowding or concentration of a single housing type. The proposed ordinance is easily understood and implemented, but at the same time, it's measured and directed. So let's get to the highlights of what that ordinance is. As you've heard, only 24 units per property. No projects. It's not going to look like New York. Income category. The income category is such that multiple cars are not going to be on the premises. We know that. So parking requirements can be adjusted properly. The proposal will be a conditional use. You'll always have a hearing on a specific project. If they'll come, they'll be here before you. The minimum stay is 6 months, and that's going to be monitored. I'll explain that. The occupancy of each unit is controlled, and I'm sure you know that in apartment buildings, renters will often create their own sub-scheme and rent to roommates. So it's likely that this is going to be less occupied than some of the apartments you're approving. Minimum age, 18. Only a single area designated in Delray Beach. This is not going to be all over the place. These are going to be managed properly, so you're not going to see their proliferation. There's going to be a distance requirement even in that subsection where they're allowed. And remember, conditional use. It's going to be licensed, so it's going to be renewed annually. If you see someone operating incorrectly, in 12 months they will be back. And if they can't justify it, you can take the license away without any difficulty. The managers are going to be on site and have their own performance with respect to those people who are living on the property. The tenants will be interviewed and vetted. The language of the ordinance can be keyed to our code, so we can control height, setback, unit sizes, everything that you do in residential neighborhoods will be part of this. Look, there's nothing fixed about this particular list. You want to add to it? We'd like to see that. All that we're talking about is beginning a dialogue. I'm so proud to represent Kurt. In all the time that I've spent involved with affordable housing, I have never seen a program that goes to people doing less than 40% of AMI. This is incredible in that it will finally help a substantial portion of Delray Beach's population that earn less than $35,000. That's amazing. I hope we can get your support. I look forward to working with your staff and developing an ordinance that will meet every single concern that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, to the commission. Let's start with the vice mayor since we ended with him last. You want to go ahead and start? Ryan, are you?
Thank you, Mayor.
There you go.
Yep. Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Mayor. This has been my stance on this subject, and I've been open with the meeting with the applicant about it, and I appreciate the time that they've taken to educate the community, educate myself, and I've toured the property actually multiple times, and said that I would be in favor of trying to find a way for them to make the renovations to that building without using their grandfathered in use. However, any change that would open this concept up to other areas of our city, I would not be in support of, merely because I think there are so many other tools that we have not utilized yet, from accessory dwelling units to being duplex, quadplex, to looking at micro housing or micro units. And no, we're not talking studios. Some of the studios we've seen in Delray Beach are like 900 square feet. Micro units start at 300 square feet. That's a third of the size of most studio apartments that have been added to Delray Beach's inventory. And all of this is coming up because I think we're going to be discussing it this year as one of the initiatives that we have put in motion as a commission is a housing diversity plan specifically for the set, because the community and the set transformation plan has asked for that. And to look at ADU units, accessory dwelling units, and to look at multi-unit housing on different properties and smaller housing concepts. So I think that conversation is coming. I think we can discuss all of those tools and maybe even include this tool in that conversation. But I'm not looking to move forward in a parallel conversation just specifically for this concept.
Okay, so that's you support this or you do not support it? I'm kind of like on.
I do. I do not. I do not.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear. All right, I'm going to go
Yep.
backwards and start with Commissioner Burns.
Okay. My stance is that I do support it. I think that and hope that the commission could agree to have the staff take the steps to analyze this and add to our inventory of true affordable housing. I mean, Delray says we want to address the affordable housing issue. However, matching income to rent, we're not addressing that. And this will. We have a set of people in this community that make less than $35,000. That's almost like unbelievable. And we are not, this would address those people. It has been beneficial. Everybody that lives in the set, this is not new. And I heard that this is the only one. I beg to differ. We've known about these rooming houses for a while. And in fact, my own brother lived in this exact rooming house for about 7 years before his death. It has been beneficial in many, many ways to very many people. One of the young men that were here was my classmate, so they're not transient. This is something that our community needs. So if not this, I just would like to see the city work with Mr. Jetta to make something work. for this. You vetting it out, making everything transparent, maybe getting a task force, but just working not to squash this, but to work with it and make it work.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Burns. Commissioner Frankel?
Sure. Appreciate the presentation, and I appreciate the comments from both colleagues. I did speak with our executive director of the CRA because of the current rooming house that is located in the city next to a church. And it's my understanding that there are many issues at that church because of residents of this building. That's what came from Renee.
Excuse me. Let's calm it down. Go.
I'm glad they're success stories, and I'm glad, we saw some of the faces, and that's very nice to see. My concern is if you open it up largely, we're going to have the same issues we had back when I first ran in 2009, when we had 8, 12, 16 people in units with 2 or 3 or 4 bathrooms. We're going to have kids dropping on the streets and taxing our first responders. I think it's a wonderful situation that we have, and they can continue to flourish. However, I will not be in support of what's being requested today, respectfully. Thank you.
Deputy Vice Mayor?
Ms. Jelen, when were rooming houses sort of disallowed in the code? When did they remove that as something that's allowed?
I'm looking at Anthea because we were researching this to give you the approximate date.
Sorry, it's weird to walk up and everyone's so quiet. Okay, and Anthea Geniotis, Development Services for the record. So we started trying to go back through different versions of the land development regulations to understand sort of how the use changed and evolved over time. And quite honestly, it was not, the code still contains a definition of a rooming house or boarding house. It doesn't permit the use in any of our zoning districts currently. So when we tracked it back, in 1972, the closest definition we could have, okay, so an addition was done to the specific building we're talking about at 105 Northwest 5th, not the larger application of this type of use in the set, but a 2-story addition was done in 1961, and it was a hostel. So if you've, I guess, traveled in Europe, they still have hostels in other parts of the country. In 1972, we had a guest house, which was defined as a dwelling containing rooms rented for temporary care or lodging of transients or travelers and advertised as such to the general public. That is the closest that we've had, and I think that the use in front of you is kind of bridging that lodging use with the idea that it is a permanent residence of some sort. Our code had another overhaul of how we define dwellings and lodging in 2000, and at that point, it's there's things like residential type inns, but the unit size for that is quite large. They're 450 square feet, so it's nowhere close to that. Bed and breakfasts are the only other uses that you don't have a bathroom with the room. There's an on-site manager. They're only allowed on historic properties. So we have a lot of lodging uses that are the closest to what's described here, as opposed to residences. Our efficiencies are allowed to be 400 square feet, but they are required to have bathroom and kitchen facilities in those units. This is different from that.
Got it, okay. So make sure I understood the history. Thank you. Appreciate it. So, first of all, I want to commend Mr. Jetta and Mr. Kushakian for doing a great job really engaging with the community and getting out there. That's what we want from folks that come in here with any sort of application or idea. And I agree with the problem that we aren't doing enough in our city in general for folks who are making under $35,000 a year. I don't know that this is the right solution right now, though. Especially, if we're talking about moving this along to have staff analyze it further, we're talking about text amendment change. That's not a small change. That's not a small amount of staff work. And like Vice Mayor Boylston said, there's other solutions to dealing with these housing issues that we have set into motion before I even got here, with the housing diversity plan. And I could certainly see a way to have Mr. Jetta as part of that conversation. But I would rather continue down that trajectory and see where we go, rather than diverting staff from something that we set into motion years ago to essentially address the same problem. Now, to be clear, I have no issue with Mr. Jetta's property. I think, based on the testimony of the folks that we saw here, you've done a wonderful job. If we were only dealing with your property, I would have no issue, but we're not. This is a text amendment change that would affect multiple parts of the city. So at this point, I don't think it's the right time to move forward in this direction, but I hope that we can still find a way to work with Mr. Jetta on this in another way. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree with my colleagues for many reasons, even more. I do know that we have an issue with housing. I don't think that this is the answer. I'm not so sure that this is even on the track of what the answer is. I think that what we have done is, like you said, Deputy Vice Mayor, that we have put on in play to move forward on ancillary housing units. We should do that. We're also working with the CRA and building housing for affordable housing, which we've done and we continue to do. We try to find the land to do it. So this is just not something that I feel like I can support as well. So I think that you have your 4-1 non-support. And that's that. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to workshop number 3, update the citywide bicycle pedestrian master plan.
Good afternoon, Anthea Geniotis. I did want to take a moment, if I can find my right page, to provide you an update. This is a project that we kicked off quite a while ago, and we're very appreciative and thankful to have T.Y. Lin. Vikas Jain is the project manager from there. They've done a wonderful job, so let me say that.
Just give it 1 second
sure.
while everybody's kind of clearing out so that we can focus on you.
That's okay.
Okay.
So it's no fault of our consultant team that we have gotten a little bit behind schedule. We did kick this off, and at the same time, it's a collaborative effort between Development Services and Public Works. And you may remember our transportation planner moved on to the TPO at the same time that our transportation engineer moved into retirement. And so we were floundering a little bit. We're very appreciative of all the support T.Y. Lin has given us. Also want to take a moment to thank the steering committee that was appointed by the commission to provide feedback and help us through this effort. Brian Rosen, Tamara Kitson-Scurry, Michael Levy, Albert Ridgewagon, who I saw in the audience, is here, Chris Petaluga. So what we have before you now is sort of the culmination of the research and recommendations that will form the actual foundation of the written master plan. This is your opportunity to give us input and to react to what we have discovered. And then the next steps would be that we will put all of these charts and maps and things into a document that we will circulate back to our steering committee and our staff, post on our website, and then it would come back to you again for final adoption. So I think that maybe it was a little bit unclear in the cover memo kind of where we were, because we have been working on it for a really long time. And so that's enough from me. I will leave you in the capable hands of Mr. Vikas Jain from T.Y. Lin. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthea. Good afternoon and Happy New Year.
And to you.
I'm Vikas Jain with T.Y. Lin. Really excited to be here to share this draft master plan with you this afternoon. I have quite a few slides. So I've structured my presentation, if you will, in 3 different parts. I'll start off with giving you a quick overview of the project. I'll touch on some technical analysis we conducted as part of this planning process, and that feeds into the recommendations that we have developed. And finally, the third item would be walking you through the various components of the master plan. As Anthea mentioned, we would love to hear your feedback and input, and we'll incorporate that as we put the final plan and the report together. So let me walk you through real quick the planning process. There are two components to this planning process. Technical component, which includes a bunch of technical analysis, looking at crash data, safety analysis, biped suitability analysis, as well as demand analysis, amongst other things. And a key component, which is public input. And we did extensive public input throughout the planning process. I'll touch on specific activities that were done over this 2-year period. And really that public input was to inform issue-based needs and identify things that are not really captured in the data. So all that fed into identifying improvements, developing project cost estimates and improvements that I'll be sharing with you in a little bit. So my team and I, as Anthea mentioned, have been working on this for quite some time, for over 2 years. We started the process back in 2021, and we are at the tail end, still need to put all the document and everything together. And as I mentioned, we conducted a very extensive public involvement process. One of the first items that came out of that stakeholder and public involvement process was the vision statement. And really, simply put, it is the overarching vision is to create a connected, safe, comfortable bicycle pedestrian network that's citywide, and all people of all ages and abilities are able to use this network to get from point A to point B. That said, the master plan's goals, they draw upon the vision statement, as I mentioned, convenient, connected, safety, comfortable, and I would like to stress that this has to be a collaborative process. As I share some of the improvements that we are recommending through this plan, you will notice that they are on city streets, on county, DOT, so it really has to be a collaborative process between the city as well as TPA, the county, and FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation. Speaking of extensive public involvement, we did one-on-one stakeholder meetings, about a dozen of them at the project outset. We met with the school district, both the schools in the city, the TPA, FDOT, CRA, HPD, Human Powered Delray, and a few other folks. We also administered an online survey. This was on the project website. The project website is up and running. The survey was up there for about 6 months. We got 200 responses. We did 2 public meetings. These were done both in the western and the eastern part of the city at Veterans Park and the Delray Beach Golf Club. As Anthea mentioned, we did get input from the focus group that you all had appointed members to, and they really helped us guide and steer this process. And we also presented this to the Planning and Zoning Board last month. So I'll get into the technical analysis, and I'll just highlight because, and if you have questions, we can talk about it more during Q&A. The first analysis we did was the biped demand analysis, and we conducted this analysis using GIS software, which is Geographical Information System software. It's a spatial analysis. It looks at population, employment, and key biped destinations, activity generators, as well as equity. We put all this together, did some scoring, ran the analysis, and this is the result of that analysis. What it shows is areas in red and orange are really high and medium to high biped demand areas, and those in green and lighter shades of green have a little bit less demand. But really, you see pretty solid demand all across the city, more so on the eastern side compared to the western part of the city. The second set of analysis we did was bicycle suitability analysis, and this is pretty standard, I should say standard, state of the art, either or, but this is industry standard when you're doing and putting together bike ped plans. This looks at level of traffic stress, and it's a data-driven analysis. The central idea here is to identify traffic level of stress for relative to various age groups. So as you can see, you want to be on a low stress side of this analysis. You want to create a network which has level of stress at maybe 1 or 2 to the extent possible. As I mentioned, this is a very objective data-driven analysis. Without getting into the weeds, we looked at the entire street network in the city, looked at a number of traffic lanes, speed, volume, whether there's parking or not on the streets, type of bicycle facility, and the separation of that bicycle facility relative to vehicular traffic. Based on that, you assign LTS level 1, 2, 3, and 4. When you do that, we ended up with this result. The graphic shows your bicycle LTS on various facilities within the city. Most of the arterials have LTS 4, which is not where you want to be, but they are, high-speed, heavy vehicular traffic facilities. The collectors are at LTS 3 and 4, and then most of the local streets are at LTS 2 and some at 1. We also looked at crash data, and we looked at about 5 years crash data from 2016 to 2021. Did some GIS analysis, identified crash hotspots. When you lay over these crash hotspots with the bicycle LTS information, you see that there's a lot of crashes on those facilities that have higher LTS. Again, it's not surprising. However, there are a few that you'll notice along Atlantic which have lower LTS for pedestrian LTS, and still you see quite a few crashes there, and that's more so because of the demand in that area. So similar to the bicycle LTS analysis, we did pedestrian suitability analysis, again looking at level of traffic stress relative to where people are walking. In this case, again, we looked at the entire network, looked at type of sidewalk, what kind of buffer the sidewalk has, whether it is just a grass separation, whether it has physical separation. There is some guardrails in some cases. Also looked at travel lanes and type of intersection crossing. Put all this together, and then ended up with a citywide map that shows pedestrian LTS. Again, this is not surprising. Most of your heavily traveled roads with vehicular traffic, high speed, they have high LTS. At 4, as I mentioned, Atlantic is a little bit different. It has lower LTS 2, but still you'll see some issues when I talk about the pedestrian crash hotspots and layering this with pedestrian level of stress. So this was all the analysis, the technical piece, and the extensive public involvement I mentioned that fed into our draft plan and the improvements that we identified. And before I talk about specific improvements on the bike ped side, just to put things into perspective, the existing bicycle network, as shown here on the right-hand side, is about 16 miles. Most of the facilities are on the eastern side of the city, and there's paved.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. You went through a lot of statistics, and are we now diving into the plan?
Yes.
Okay. It was supposed to be done in 10 minutes, and so you kind of whittled through a lot of statistics, and you didn't even get to the plan at this point in time. How much time do you need?
Maybe 10 minutes, and I can skip and we can jump straight into
See,
the
10
plan.
minutes is going to bring us to our next meeting, and we're not going to have any time to really even discuss. That's why we have a time limit. Yep.
To be fair, that's very hard to do this in 10 minutes, and we didn't think that the LDR amendments, which are typically 10 minutes, would eat into quite so much time. So however you want to do it.
Might offer a recommendation that we summarize it in 5 minutes so that we can make a
That'd be
smooth
fine.
transition.
At least we'll have some time to be able to discuss.
Correct.
Can we do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Perfect. Thank you.
So let me jump to the recommended improvements. Based on all the technical analysis I mentioned, we identified these pedestrian improvements. I want to talk. Hang on. Excuse me. So these are the recommended bicycle network improvements. We are expanding the bicycle network in the city by almost doubling it, adding 53 miles of different types of bicycle facilities that are shown here. About 47% of this recommended bicycle network is really, really low stress. You have either buffered bicycle lanes here or shared use path. And then this is the input that we had gotten from the stakeholders and the community. I'll also talk about the recommended pedestrian network improvements. We are recommending about 19 miles of sidewalk improvements and 7.5 miles of buffers. In your agenda packet, you have tables that show details of each of the roadway segments that are shown here, and there's cost information and other technical information related to each of these projects. The numbers on these graphic cross-reference those tables. We also identified some safety projects. These are again based on technical information as well as public input. Again, while these are some of the improvements that we have identified, all the other improvements that I showed on the previous two maps, safety would be an integral part of those projects. And let me touch on the priority bundles. So we did some analysis. Since there are a lot of improvements that we are recommending, we did an analysis and we broke them into 4 tiers, and this was to prioritize those while giving some flexibility for moving projects around. And we did the same thing for pedestrian network improvements as well. Looked at the total cost. The total cost of all the improvements that I showed on the previous two maps is about $100 million for recommended bicycle improvements and about $15.5 million for pedestrian improvements. With that, I think I'll just stop here. You
ended with a mic drop. Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Sure.
And we appreciate it. I'm sorry to
No, that's
rush
all right.
you along like that. I
That's
didn't
okay.
want to, but obviously there was some eating it on your time, so I apologize for that.
No problem.
So we will start again with here, and we'll have the Vice Mayor go last. So let me start with, to my left, Ms. Burns. Any comments?
Thank you for the presentation. Yeah, that's it.
That's it? Okay. Commissioner Frankel? Brief.
I thank you as well. Rob, I give you credit. Anyone who would ride a bike in this city, you've got to have a lot of guts, far more than I would ever have. But the one thing I would say about pedestrian, because I do walk downtown, and it's amazing since I've moved, I'm coming up almost on 20 years living downtown. The amount of people walking in the downtown, whether to restaurants or their dogs or whatnot, it's tremendous. The one thing I see personally, and I get the most feedback, is the pavers. There's a lot of loose pavers. and it's a lot less than 15 million to fix the pavers. But even with the tourist season, everyone here down for the holidays, walking to the beach, that would be one thing I would probably we should look at just for everything. But I appreciate it. Thank you, Anthea.
Thank
you,
you.
sir.
Deputy Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you for the very comprehensive presentation. I'm obviously biased as I'm a cyclist here, but I agree with Commissioner Frankel. I think having a very walkable city and having multimodal transportation is crucial to an evolving city. I think that all the studies show that it leads to increased quality of life for residents and folks who are visiting, and so I certainly see a need for that. I think there's a major economic benefit to it as well. So I'm supportive.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. We were obviously very limited on time. I appreciate the
I know.
presentation. I look forward to meeting with staff on this separately, and then we'll decide next steps as a commission in regards to bringing this back for discussion.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think that it was rushed. However, I do know that we have definite needs here. I think that we are doing some good things, though. We have things under construction right now. If you go down to Lowson Boulevard, and I noticed that was one of your red zones, you're going to find that from Dover Street all the way east now to Federal Highway is going to have very wide sidewalks that can be used for bikes and pedestrian traffic. This was an area that fed a lot of children to the school, Pine Grove, and there wasn't even a sidewalk. I remember not too long ago driving, because that's one of my routes, on the right-hand side. So what was there? There was a dirt walk path. So you knew it was being used. And when you see that in your city, you see these dirt paths, that's where you kind of know we got to get busy on that. So we did team with the TPA, that's the Transportation Planning Authority. For anybody who doesn't know that, I sit on the board, and that is a shared expense FDOT project that we have going on right down there. And that's what I think we need to be moving forward with. I have to tell you, $100 million, I've gotten a couple calls about that because it was on the news, and there's a lot of things in this town that we need to do. And we're looking at a prioritizing system. Are we putting, people are concerned we're putting bicycles over the things that we need? No, we're not. This is a long-term process. This is a plan for the future. It is something that we can take a piece of and decide to do and not do others. We can do that.
Absolutely.
And that is what we have been doing in the past. But it's great to have the plan in front of us for the future commissioners that are going to be sitting up here with the opportunity to maybe do a piece here or there and kind of focusing on what they feel is best to be done next. I have to say, I agree with my colleague, Commissioner Frankel, in that our city is a more walkable than bikeable city at this point in time. I think that that is something that we need to continue to push and make sure that we have streets that are capable of handling the pedestrian traffic and are not dangerous. That's something we can do in the short term. And I also was surprised at the Tier 4 on your study. That was along A1A. We just had a major, wasn't in our city, it was in Gulfstream, but a major plowing of a bunch of bicyclists who ended up having to go to the hospital. That area seems to me to be an area that should be one of our first areas to look at, because that's where the majority of the bike traffic is. And listen, it's not like the bike traffic is doing the right thing up there either. They will take up the entire road in a pack, and it aggravates people who are driving, especially if they're trying to get somewhere. So there has to be some rules of the road, and probably there needs to be some enforcement. But more importantly, that's an area that I think that we should really kind of focus on as one of the places that we can maybe make it safer for everybody to be up there, because that bike traffic isn't going anywhere. They're going to be continuing to go up and down that. And I'd like to make sure that Delray Beach offers a safe a passageway through our city. That would be my recommendations. But of course, I support moving forward with this plan, and certainly with some reservations as to how we implement it and when we implement it. And I also want to just make one more mention. We have a major debt in the country right now. So there's probably going to be down the road here some drying up of funds for these types of things. And we need to keep that in mind as well. Not get ourselves out there in front of this and then we can't do it, or it's 100% burden on the city. I think that what we need to do is be very smart about our approach and take it from there. That would be my recommendation and my feedback for you.
Thank you.
Thank you
So-
so very much. Yes.
Madam Mayor, just to summarize
Yes.
briefly, any future engagements regarding these considerations will become a focus for the long-term
Perfect.
capital improvement programming process. So future engagement with staff in this regard will be a function of exercise, which will be integral with the Mayor and City Commission moving forward. So it is a long-term focus to take under consideration. All points haven't been raised, and that would be the avenue in which we will engage.
Sounds good. And I want to also make sure that the city knows that we have these timeframes that we can put in and submit for shared cost with the TPA. I think we have one approaching now. Make sure that if there's
Right.
anything on here that really could work, that they will help to pay for, that we do that as well, because that just lessens the tax burden of our citizens.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That is part of the impetus behind this, is
Great.
that we have data to prove our needs, which will hopefully make us more competitive for other dollars outside of the city
Fantastic.
to make improvements. So that is part of it, not that Delray is paying for all of it on its own,
Got
but
it.
to make us bring those grant dollars home.
All right, so everybody can now eat their dinner and not worry about $100 million going out next year. Understand this is a process, all right, in the long term. Thank you very much. Anything
you.
else?
No,
Okay,
ma'am.
I'm going to adjourn this meeting, and we're going to take 5 minutes. We'll be meeting back here, let's say at 10 after, or maybe, you need more than that? All right, 10 after to start our regular meeting. Meeting adjourned.